My family tried to fix what was broken, but the cracks were too deep. They wanted to be part of my life again, but I was already living without them. I had found a family of my own, one that didn't judge me, one that didn't demand perfection. I told them, "You can't unbreak what you destroyed, and I'm not coming back." The cracks were always there, before the silence, before the exit, long before anyone called it distance. It was the way my mother sighed when I wore something she didn't like, the way my father raised his eyebrow instead of his voice, quiet judgment that hit harder than shouting ever could. It was the way I was praised only in comparison to someone else. "At least you're not like your cousin. You could have turned out worse." Love came in conditions. Smiles came with strings. Every compliment had a shadow. If I cried, I was dramatic. If I spoke up, I was disrespectful. If I succeeded, I was told not to get too full of myself. They called it standards. I called it walking on glass. I learned early how to shrink, because nothing I did ever felt quite right. And even when it did, it still wasn't enough. They called it tough love, said it like a badge of honor, like cruelty was character, like shame was tradition. When I was 9, I forgot a homework assignment and got a silent dinner. No eye contact, no explanation. Just a plate set down and cleared before I finished eating. When I was 15, I cried over a breakup and was told, "No one likes a girl who can't hold it together." When I was 17, I got into college and my father asked how I planned to afford it before he said congratulations. They called it preparing me for the world, but it felt more like punishment. Love came with rules, obedience came first. Grace wasn't part of the structure. They didn't hit. They didn't scream. They froze, withheld, controlled, and still expected gratitude. I never felt good enough. Not once. Not fully. Not even when I tried to check every box they handed me. I made honor roll, they asked why it wasn't all A's. I won a scholarship, they said, "Don't get cocky." I got promoted, they asked when I planned to settle down. Every win was followed by a but. "But you could have done better." But that's not really impressive. But don't let it go to your head. Even the way they said, "We're proud of you," felt like it had an expiration date. I started chasing perfection, thinking maybe that would buy me peace. It never did, because they didn't love achievement, they loved control. And the second I stepped outside their comfort, I became a problem again. I tried to earn what should have been free, their approval, their kindness, their time. I made my life a performance, every move calculated, every choice edited for their comfort. I downplayed my opinions, smiled when I wanted to scream, bit my tongue until it bled. I visited often, called more, bought gifts I couldn't afford, said thank you for things that didn't deserve gratitude. I worked twice as hard just to be tolerated. And when I finally cried, really cried, my mother asked if I was on something. My father asked if I was trying to embarrass them. So I wiped my face, straightened up, and stopped asking for what they never planned to give. Because no matter how hard I tried, their love had rules. And I was done pretending I didn't notice. Then I left, no fight, no dramatic exit, no letter, just silence. I stopped calling, stopped showing up. Stopped making excuses for people who made me feel like I owed them my life just for being born into theirs. I packed my things over weeks, not days. Moved city by city, not mile by mile. I didn't tell them where. Didn't leave a trail. There was no single moment, just 1,000 small ones. The last time I felt dismissed. The last time I was spoken to like a burden. The last time I thought, maybe they'll change. And then I just didn't go back. I didn't announce it. I just started living like I was allowed to breathe. The silence was peace. No calls checking to see what I was doing wrong. No surprise visits to inspect my living space. No passive-aggressive comments passed off as jokes. I didn't realize how much noise they created until it was gone. Waking up without the pressure of their opinions felt unnatural at first, like something was missing. But it wasn't. Nothing was missing, it was just quiet. And the quiet didn't ask me to explain myself. I started drinking my coffee how I liked it. Too strong, too hot. No one around to say I was ruining my stomach or that it was unladylike to take it black. No one to ask me if I'd eaten just to criticize what I ate. The first weekend in my new apartment, I sat on the floor surrounded by unopened boxes and cheap furniture and realized I wasn't scared. I was alone, yes, but not scared. The difference was everything. I didn't have to perform anymore. Not for a phone call, not for a holiday dinner, not for people who only ever clapped when I played the role they wrote for me. I walked around barefoot, left dishes in the sink, laughed too loud at shows they would have rolled their eyes at. When my paycheck came in, I bought myself fresh flowers. Not because anyone was visiting, not because anyone would see, just because I wanted to. I started therapy, quietly, privately. I didn't tell anyone, didn't ask permission, just went, once a week. A small office with soft lighting and a woman who asked, "What do you want for yourself?" Like it was a question I was allowed to answer. And the first time I said, "I don't know," she nodded and didn't make me feel stupid for not having an answer. I was allowed to not know things here. That was new. The healing didn't come like a breakthrough. It came in layers. Grocery lists that didn't include things for other people. Long walks with no destination. Falling asleep without the weight of rehearsing tomorrow's conversations in my head. I stopped explaining my decisions to people who never listened anyway. When an old family friend messaged me asking why I hadn't been to the last gathering, I didn't respond. I stared at the message, read it twice, then archived it. Not out of spite, just disinterest. I wasn't obligated to answer questions that came from places that never offered care. And for the first time, my life was only mine. No one knew if I failed. No one was waiting to tell me I deserved it if I did. There were hard days, of course. Lonely ones. Days when I wished I had a mother I could call just to hear, "You're doing great." But I never had that to begin with. I only had the hope of it, the ache of wanting it. Missing the idea of someone isn't the same as missing them. I kept going. I got through winter on cheap heating and borrowed blankets. Burned dinner more times than I'll admit. Forgot birthdays and didn't get scolded for it. The quiet didn't criticize. When people asked about my family, I gave short answers. "We don't talk much. We're not close." Sometimes just, "It's complicated." That was enough. The people who mattered didn't press. The ones who pressed didn't stay. Eventually, I stopped bringing them up entirely. Not because I was hiding anything, because there was nothing new to say. They were gone. I was better. That was the story. It didn't need a plot twist. I built something new, not all at once, not with a plan, just brick by quiet brick. I got a job at a bookstore, part-time at first. Stacking shelves, learning the titles by touch, not just by name. The manager didn't ask about my past. Just showed me where the break room was and told me to take lunch whenever I needed. It was the first time in years I wasn't watched while I worked. I found a studio apartment over a bakery. The floors creaked, the walls were thin, and the shower needed coaxing, but it was mine. Every picture on the wall, every chipped plate, every noise at night that didn't scare me just reminded me I was in a space I chose. There was a coffee shop down the street where I started reading again. Real reading, not scrolling. I sat by the window with my feet tucked under the chair and lost myself in stories where the main characters made mistakes and still got love in the end. That felt important. I stopped dressing for criticism, wore jeans I liked, let my hair curl without taming it. No one called me lazy for not wearing makeup. No one looked me up and down and said, "You'd be so pretty if." I cooked simple meals. Pasta too often, eggs at odd hours. I didn't worry about presentation. If it tasted good, it was good enough. And slowly, I started meeting people who didn't ask me to shrink. They didn't know where I came from. They didn't ask. They just saw who I was now and stayed. A barista who always remembered my order. A neighbor who left flowers outside my door after I helped her carry groceries. A coworker who invited me to her game night without assuming I'd say no. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. Because I wasn't performing anymore. I was building. And what I was building had space for joy. Even when no one clapped for it but me, I met people who saw me, not the version I was trained to present. Not the version that made others comfortable. Me, the quiet parts, the blunt parts, the ones that laugh too hard, talk too fast, say too little when things get heavy. They didn't flinch. They didn't fix. They just stayed. One friend came from work. We bonded over bad coffee and worse customers. She didn't ask about my family. She noticed the way I avoided questions and let the silence be a shield, not a spotlight. When I finally told her about some of it, she didn't say, but they're still your parents. She said, that sounds like hell. I'm glad you got out. Another came from a volunteer project, organizing books for kids who'd never had a home library. He brought me snacks during breaks, told stories with too much detail, cried during a documentary and didn't apologize for it. I didn't know friendship could feel like rest. They showed up without expectation. Called to check in, not to correct. Let me change my mind without making it a flaw. Remembered things about me I never thought mattered to anyone. When I canceled plans, they didn't guilt me. When I showed up quiet, they didn't ask for a performance. They just made space. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was borrowing love on a time limit. It was just there, offered, not earned. I found my family somewhere else. No blood ties, no matching names, no shared holiday albums or childhood memories, just bond. The kind that doesn't demand backstory. The kind that doesn't collapse when you stop being useful. We didn't grow up together, we grew together. Through long walks, honest conversations. The kind of laughter that builds trust without needing permission first. There was a night we all sat on the floor of someone's too small apartment, eating takeout from mismatched containers. Music low, lights softer. No judgment, no tension, just presence. One of them leaned back and said, I'm glad we all found each other. No big moment, no dramatic swell, but I felt it. This was family. The kind that texts just to say they miss you. The kind that celebrates your small wins louder than your old life ever did for your biggest ones. The kind that doesn't need an excuse to make room for you. They didn't ask me to explain the cracks in my past. They just helped me build new walls, ones that didn't need hiding behind. And slowly, without forcing it, I became someone I actually liked being around. Because the people around me didn't make me feel like I had to earn my place. They just gave it to me. Years passed without a word. No calls on my birthday. No texts during the holidays. No emails asking where I'd gone or how I was doing. Just silence. At first, I expected something. A message. A guilt trip. A breadcrumb meant to pull me back in. But nothing came, not from them. It felt strange. Then it felt like relief. I didn't have to brace myself for backhanded compliments or awkward phone calls that started with, "We were just talking about you," and ended with unsolicited advice. I didn't have to explain why I didn't come home for Thanksgiving. I didn't have to justify my choices, my job, my haircut, my tone of voice. The days blended into months. The months became years. And with every quiet season, I stopped checking my phone as much. I stopped imagining reconciliation scenes in my head, stopped writing letters I'd never send, stopped hoping for a version of them that never existed. I stopped missing the fantasy, and I started living in the truth. They were gone, and I wasn't waiting anymore. Then they reached out, not with a knock on the door, not with tears, with emails, voicemails, regret wrapped in nostalgia. The first one was from my mother. Subject line, thinking of you. She wrote like we'd spoken last week, like the years between us hadn't been carved out by silence. I saw something that reminded me of you. I hope you're doing well. We miss you. Miss me? The next was a voicemail from my father. His voice flat, careful. I know things got complicated, just wanted to check in. Maybe talk sometime. Then came the others, a cousin, an aunt. A sibling I hadn't heard from in half a decade. Let's catch up. It's been too long. We're all getting older, you know. They came slowly, then all at once, like someone gave them permission. None of them said what they'd done. None of them named the silence. They just acted like it hadn't happened, like the version of me they ignored no longer existed. They said they were sorry, but only in the way people apologize when they want the past to go away, not when they want to own it. Sorry if we made you feel like you weren't supported. Sorry things got so tense. Sorry you felt like we didn't love you. The kind of sorry that shifts the weight back onto me. That paints their cruelty as a misunderstanding. That frames their silence as a sad little accident. My mother wrote, we were just trying to help. Maybe we didn't always get it right. My father said, you know how we were raised. We didn't have the tools. They didn't say, we hurt you. They didn't say, we chose distance over care. They said, we miss you. As if that changed anything. As if missing me was enough. As if I should be grateful they remembered I existed. I met them once, one afternoon, 1 hour. A cafe near the highway, neutral, public, temporary. They picked the place, said it was halfway for everyone, said they wanted it to be casual. When I walked in, they were already seated. My mother smiled too quickly. My father stood halfway, then sat back down like he didn't know what to do with his hands. We ordered drinks, made small talk, weather, work, things they could comment on without risking discomfort. They didn't ask where I'd been. They didn't ask who I'd become. They just tried to act like we were all still playing the same roles, like they hadn't watched me disappear, like I hadn't needed to. The air felt rehearsed. They were polite. I was calm. No one said what they meant, but I was already prepared for that. They talked about the past, like it was something we survived together, like we were all just doing our best. My mother laughed about the time I stormed out during a family dinner, left out the part where she called me ungrateful for not wanting to be the joke. My father mentioned my teenage years, said I was difficult, that I liked to challenge everything. They didn't talk about the pressure, the silence, the years of not showing up. They skipped the apologies, smoothed over the harm, framed everything as miscommunication. It wasn't cruelty, according to them, it was confusion. They told me they were proud of me now, that it was good to see me doing so well, that maybe all that tough love finally paid off. I didn't correct them. I didn't give them the version they were fishing for. I let them rewrite history in front of me. Because I was done begging them to see what they chose to ignore, I let them talk. Every revision, every excuse, every memory told with the volume turned down on the parts that hurt. I listened without reacting, without correcting, without giving them the satisfaction of watching me flinch. And when they were done, when the table went quiet and the check hadn't come and there was nothing left for them to dress up, I told the truth. You didn't just make mistakes. You made choices, and I lived with them longer than you ever did. No yelling, no tears, just clarity. You didn't lose me because we drifted. You lost me because I stopped bleeding for people who never learned how to stop cutting. They didn't interrupt. Because it wasn't up for debate, it wasn't a conversation, it was a boundary, and it was already built. You can't unbreak it. That's what I told them. They looked at me like I was speaking another language, one they hadn't bothered to learn. I'm not angry, I said. I'm not waiting for revenge, but I'm not coming back. They blinked, tried to nod like they understood, but I saw it, the flicker of panic behind the politeness. You can't erase the years you ignored me. You can't rewrite what happened just because you finally want access again. They shifted in their seats. You can't unbreak what you destroyed. I said it once, only once. That was all it needed. I didn't owe them a second chance at my peace. Some things don't heal, they just stop hurting. They didn't take it well, told me I was ungrateful, that I was cold, that I was holding a grudge for too long. My mother said, "We're trying and you're pushing us away." My father said, "You always were dramatic." The guilt came wrapped in concern. "We're just worried about you. We miss the old you. We're still family." They tried to make me feel cruel for protecting myself, like boundaries were a betrayal, like survival made me selfish. When guilt didn't work, they reached for pity, said they were hurt, said they felt rejected, said I was being unfair, but what they wanted wasn't reconnection. They wanted access, and when I refused, they called it abandonment. But I'd already lived through that. Once. I wasn't doing it again. I blocked the numbers again. This time, I didn't hesitate, didn't think about it, didn't reread the last message to see if there was anything worth salvaging. There wasn't. I opened the contact list, hit block, one name after another. Emails too, socials. Every backdoor they might have used to try again, not because I was angry, because I was done. The kind of done that doesn't need discussion. The kind that feels like clarity, not conflict. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't post about it. I just cleaned the slate, shut the door, and kept walking. No announcements, no explanations, just silence. Mine. I went home to my real family. Not the one I came from, the one I chose. The one that knew the whole story and never used it against me. The one that laughed with me in small kitchens, remembered how I take my coffee, held space when I didn't feel like speaking. They didn't ask me to be better, they just let me be. We had dinner that night. Nothing fancy. Pasta, salad, a half-eaten cake from someone's fridge. We passed plates, shared stories, talked over each other like the moment would never end. At some point, someone put music on. Someone else pulled me into a slow, ridiculous dance in the middle of the living room. I stepped on their foot. We both laughed. I looked around and realized I didn't feel like I was performing. I didn't feel like I was being watched. I felt home. And I didn't miss who wasn't there. I'm not coming back. Not to the dinners where I had to rehearse every word. Not to the hugs that felt like obligation. Not to the version of me they only loved when she stayed quiet. I live somewhere else now, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. In every sense that matters, I don't check for updates. I don't wonder if they've changed. I don't build fantasy versions of them in my head anymore. Because I'm not hoping for healing that requires me to shrink. I'm full here, whole, loud when I want to be, soft when I feel safe. Free in a way I didn't think was possible when love used to mean earning it. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm just gone. And for once, I know that leaving wasn't the loss. It was the beginning. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.